99.9 Punk World Radio FM's Elite Wrestle Talk. We are live. This is episode 33, and we have the phenomenal, we have Bull Buchanan, WWF's Right to Censor. This man also had a brief strut in ECW. This man's wrestled all over the place. He really needs no introduction. Bull, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. I've been super stoked for this interview since we got it set up. I love what you're doing with your bullpen wrestling, which we're going to talk about within the interview as well. But I just got to say, thank you so much for your time tonight, man.
Sure, of course.
But I know you're a busy guy, so I'm not going to take you away from your night too long. But I want to take you way back to the year of 1995 in North Georgia Independent Circuit, where you actually went under the name Punisher. I was wondering if you can just tell us a bit more about the Punisher gimmick, and of course, what led you into getting into professional wrestling.
So actually, in '95, I was in Smoky Mountain. Right before that, I was in the North Georgia Wrestling Alliance, which was an Atlanta-based promotion. And then I wrestled there as Sunset Sam McGraw. And then later on, when I went to Smoky Mountain, that year when I went to Smoky Mountain, Jim Cornette gave me the name The Punisher. But I just always been a fan of wrestling. I spent my entire youth growing up trying to figure out, how I could get into pro wrestling. And then I went to college for a few years, played a little basketball, and then some guys from my hometown were doing it. So I got with them and got my foot in the door. And I'd been in business about 6 months, and I got that shot in Atlanta. It had a little TV, and it had a block of TV actually, and Memphis was on the block, and Smoky Mountain was on the block, and North Georgia was on the block. So I knew by going there it would possibly help me get somewhere else, and at that time, I never really thought about going to WWE until I went to Smoky Mountain and got with Jim Cornette. I always figured I'd go to WCW because that's what I grew up watching. That was actually my favorite wrestling was WCW or Georgia Championship. And so I never really thought about going to WWE. And there were a lot of, it was early 90s, real early, like 90, 91, 92. WCW was a little more lenient about, some of their guys going out and doing other stuff. So, we'd have guys from WCW, like Cactus came down to North Georgia Wrestling. We occasionally have guys, and we had a bunch of guys that went through there that Ray Lloyd, Glacier, New Jack Mustafa. That's, kind of where they got their start at. We all started down there in North Georgia. But, it eventually led me to Smoky Mountain, and I went there and was Jim Cornette's bodyguard. And, from there, that kind of got me into WWE.
And I do know as well that you actually mentioned you really wanted to do the WCW thing. Did they ever contact you at all during your career? Because I know your first WWF run was actually around in between 97 and 99. So with that being said, that was right around the hype of the Monday Night Wars. Did WCW ever try and cherry pick you out of WWF? Did they ever call you at all?
No, it's funny because me and the guy that I trained with, Bulldog Reigns, we look like wrestlers. We look, when, people say that it factor. I mean, I was 6'6", I was jacked. I was like 290, 300 pounds. He was 5'11", 6 foot, and he was 270 pounds. So, when we walked into a wrestling show, people looked at us. And we went to a show down in, I think it was Oxford, Alabama, and just walked in. We bought a ticket and walked in, and everybody, we were already started training, and we're already in the business. But we were going to go back there and try to talk to somebody, and we never got the chance. And I called down there one time, and I know it was Jody I talked to. And years later, me and Jody got to be friends. Me and Nick Patrick were friends, and I was friends with his dad, Jody. And we laughed about it because I called down there, and Jody answered the phone. And, anybody knows Jody Hamilton, the original assassin, who was over the power plant. Jody had real gruff, kind of gruff, voice. And I knew exactly who it was as soon as he answered the phone. But I introduced myself and told him what I was doing. And told him, he said, well, we're not taking any established stars right now. It's going to cost you $250 for a tryout. And I said, well, okay, thank you, sir. I said, honestly, I didn't have $250 to pay for a tryout. And But no, I mean, once I got to Smoky Mountain and I kind of I started talking to people and I kind of, got smartened up a little bit, and just about to the person, everybody told me, if you want to build a career, you want to do this, you need to go to New York, you need to go to Vince. Because even at that time, people were, I hate to say it, but I think some of the threads were already showing through on the tires down there at WCW. Because you just hear stories about, man, it's just it's nobody's running the place; it's just kind of running itself. So, most of the guys that I had a lot of respect for in business and everything told me the same thing. You want to go to New York. That's where New York will always be where the big show and the big money is.
I definitely agree. And I know with WCW there as well, I mean, with the whole, I think it was 83 weeks they dominated Monday Night Raw. But with that being said, you kind of noticed that it was being run by itself, especially watching the NWO just kind of grow and grow and grow. I mean, it was just kind of like, damn, man, it's like everyone's NWO now. That's around the time I kind of noticed that there were some issues.
Yeah. Well, I was there. They were handing our butts to us on a weekly basis. It was pretty ugly, but and people don't realize. I don't think a lot of people don't, but we were just a few bad breaks. I mean, if they kept hammering us the way they did, and the Mr. McMahon thing hadn't took off, if the stars hadn't aligned like they had, and when we'd lost an Undertaker or we'd lost a Shawn Michaels or somebody like, we'd already lost Brett. But if we'd lost a guy like that, or God forbid, Austin or Rocky or any of those guys, it's a very good possibility that we wouldn't be watching WWE SmackDown. We'd be watching Friday Night Thunder. I mean, it was the guys that were there we all knew it and kind of like, man, we're gonna have to do something here. We got to turn something around. But yeah, I mean, it was a competition. I mean, it was a competition.
And me personally, I think the one thing that kind of made the tables turn, because I heard a story that WCW was actually infiltrating WWF shows, because Monday Night Raw always said they were live, but they weren't really live; they were taped. And I think like they were they're feeding the stuff to their rating to the people. Like, don't go watch this tonight. This happens. But I think what really messed them up is when they said, "Oh, Mankind's going to win the title. Don't bother. You heard it here first. Don't change the channel." With that being a former WCW wrestler that never got his shine on Turner TV, now they're on Vince's TV. I think that right there made people go, "Wait, you know what? We're going to WWF. We got to see Cactus Jack, now Mankind, win that strap."
Yeah. Oh, they turned right off. They said, "Really? Cactus is winning the belt tonight? Shit, I'm turning the channel." Yeah, that one backfired big time on them. But Howard Finkel used to when he was still doing ring announcing. But once he got done doing the initial ring announce, I think Lillian at that time, was taking over after. He would do the big intro. But he would come backstage and he'd sit. They had him a little monitor, and he'd sit there and watch WCW Nitro, and he'd let them know everything they were doing. And I'm sure they had somebody that was doing that too. They were watching our show, we were watching their show. So we used to come in on Tuesday mornings because SmackDown was taped on Tuesdays, Tuesday night, and I think he's shown on Thursday night at that time. But we would come in on Tuesday morning for SmackDown after Monday Night Raw, and the production office would have a sheet up, and it would show every segment that, if you were in the fourth segment on WWE on our TV, it showed what segment you were up against as on WCW, and it showed a rating there. Who drew a bigger rating. So and you didn't know. You could be in the fourth segment on our show and be up against Goldberg. Or you could be you could be on the sixth segment and be up against the NWO or whatever. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of pressure back then. We were under a lot of pressure, but sometimes pressure makes diamonds, and shit, man. Austin and Rocky and Taker, and it was just a collaborative effort from everybody.
And also, some fans might not know this, but you had a very brief career in ECW Extreme Championship Wrestling in the year 1996, where you went under the name Stud. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about your ECW days, and of course, what was it like just working those 2 matches for Paul Heyman in Philadelphia?
So, Smoky Mountain shut down, unfortunately, right there at the end of, I guess, 95, right there. I think it was the Thanksgiving Thunder tour that we were on. Cornette just came back there and said, guys, I've given it everything I got. I'm going to work Vince full time. And, I was his bodyguard, but I was also his protege. He literally coached me I was green. When I got to Smoky Mountain, man, I was green. I bless their heart, Bob Armstrong, all the Armstrongs had to work with me, Ricky and Robert, and I know I was killing them. But, so Cornette told me, he said, just go back to the Indies, do what you were doing, keep working. Just, if you can go somewhere, but just keep working. And I'm going to try to get you a job up there. I said, okay. So that's what I did. I just went back to the Indies. I had a little bit of a name up around the Smoky Mountain area, so I could get a little more bookings in Tennessee. Anyway, I had a friend in Georgia named Billy Black. Him and a guy named Joel Deaton were a tag team over in Japan, a fairly successful tag team in all Japan. And this was the time, with tape traders and everything. So Paul was wanting stuff from Japan, and they called Billy about him and Joel coming up, and I think Joel was in Puerto Rico. So Billy called me, told Paul, said, hey, I got a kid, I can bring with me. And so we went up there, and it was great. I got into wrestling in the early 90s. I'm in my 20s, ECW. I heard all the arguments against it, of course, from the old timers, which were the guys that taught me. But at the same time, it was TV and it was cool. I mean, you could tell they were killing themselves up there. But it was an opportunity. I'd seen even at that point, I'd seen guys go there and then go bigger. So it was an opportunity. I wasn't looking forward to jumping off of scaffolds, nothing like that. But you do what you got to do. And went there, had a ball, had a blast. Paul Lee liked us. He really liked me, my size and everything. So we were coming back, and I got a contract in the mail. Cornette told Vince that I just started over there, and didn't know what they were going to do with me. And Vince said, "We'll go ahead and sign him." So yeah, I got a contract in the mail. I think about a week later after I got back from ECW. But I still had to think about it a little bit because I didn't know it at the time. I know it now. I think it's pretty well widely known now. Vince likes making his own talent. He loves being able to say that he created you from the ground up. And, I didn't know that at the time. But I knew that if I went to ECW, there's a chance that I could make my name there and then parlay that into, a better spot if I did get to go to WWE or go to WCW or go to Japan or, it was an opportunity. And then think about all the guys that got bigger opportunities from ECW. So, yeah, I had a blast. If anybody gets hold of the actual tape, there's some highlights out there, man. I did a leg drop. I did an elbow drop off the top. I mean, I don't know how high I got. I couldn't hardly walk the next day, but I left it all on the table. We got to work the Eliminators. We got to work Perry Saturn and Cronus, so that was cool because they were so over there, and it was just great, man. ECW crowd was there's I don't know that there'll ever be anything else like that. The crowd was actually a part of the show, and it was a lot of the guys. The guy I can't think of the names, but the guy with the Hawaiian shirt, and they were actually celebrities in the crowd. So yeah, it was great.
And I'm pretty sure the locker room was just absolutely crazy because you had the New Jacks, you had Sabu, you had Sandman. I can only imagine the atmosphere in the locker room. I had the opportunity to work an ECW reunion show in Philly this past May with Cheap Heat Promotions and Jack Kilby, No Gimmicks guy. And I will admit, these guys are now in their late 50s, 60s. Absolute partiers. I said to myself, I'm standing backstage as a worker, but I'm trying not to mark out on the inside. And I'm just like, okay, I'm looking at Sandman and all this. And I'm like, I can only imagine what this was like back in the 90s because these guys are wild right now.
Oh, it was full blown Wild West. like I said, it was a blast all the way around from the arena to the fans to the working to the after party. It was a hell of a weekend. The thing that was so great to me, I thought, was just the when we get to the ECW arena, we get there early in the day, like maybe around 2 or 3, and people are already lined up around the arena waiting to get tickets. And then that night, anybody that's ever any of the ECW guys see this, well, the Travel Lodge. It was the round Travel Lodge building there in Philly, where everybody and all the fans knew that the boys stayed there, so the fans would stay there. But we had like we had rooms all over the place, and you just go. It was kind of like Japan, but a little more. You just go from room to room. You walk in this room, and grab a beer, and then walk in another room, grab something else, and but we stayed up to like 4 or 5. I think they were still might have been going at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I think the sun was coming up, but everybody stayed up all night and did promos. They would do promos there in one of the rooms. They had a little background set up, and everybody just hang out and bullshit and tell stories and drink and do whatever. And wait for your time to do your promo. Then you go sit back down, hang out a little while. It was just a really cool, relaxed atmosphere up there. But yeah, it was. Yeah, the party went on and on and on and on. It was like I said, it was the Wild Wild West, no doubt.
And before we move off the topic of ECW, I do know that you actually mentioned a few moments ago that you really, when you got offered the contract to the World Wrestling Federation, you were kind of like, you kind of had your doubts. You didn't really know what to do. What really actually made you make your mind up about going to the WWF rather than staying with ECW?
Well, I mean, in all honesty, you're talking about a 20-something-year-old kid, um, and I got a contract there with the WWF logo at the top. It's several several dozen pages long, and it's real money, real dates, real. It's just hard to say no to that. Um, yeah, like I said, I mean, I thought, maybe I should stay and make a name for myself, but I mean, these guys are wanting me. I mean, they offered it to me, so not a lot of that on Jim Cornette's word. But they had seen Jim Ross knew me. Jim Ross had seen me down there in Smoky Mountain, so and I knew some folks that were up there, one or two. Chief J Strongbow knew me from down here in Georgia. He was still there at the time, and some other folks. But I mean, it's when I've heard the story told. Several different people have told the story. Cornette's told. I've heard Bill Watts tell it. Um, but it really, really is true. Back in the day, Vince Senior would work with the territory guys. But if he wanted somebody, he was going to get them because nobody could compete. New York's always been where the money was. Madison Square Garden, Philadelphia Spectrum, Meadowlands Arena. You got to think it's a small area compared to some of the other territories. But you got to think what's in that area. I mean, New York City. So, if Vince Senior wanted him, he was going to get him. But, he would give, like if he wanted somebody from Watts, he'd say, okay, well, I need him on this date starting then. And, if you can finish him up, and I'll give you an extra week or two on Andre, which was a guaranteed sellout in every arena he went to. So, I mean, he would work with them. But if they want you, it's hard to say. It's hard to say no. Back then, now, I think any time in history, ever since there's been pro wrestling, if you can make it in New York, you can make it just about anywhere.
And also, upon joining the World Wrestling Federation, you actually you were part of a stable called the Truth Commission. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about that, and of course, what was it like just being a part of that? Because I feel like the Truth Commission doesn't get as much love as you guys all deserve. Because I know it was very short lived, but you guys had phenomenal chemistry on the television.
Yeah. So I went down to Memphis when I signed the contract. They sent me down there and stayed down there for about 6 months, and was at home and got a call. They wanted me to come up to New York for a costume fitting. So I figured, okay, well, maybe this will give me an idea of what I'm doing. And I came in and it was a military outfit. So I said, okay, so some kind of military thing or whatever. I was, a tall guy. At the time I had a crew cut kind of military look going on. So made sense. Well, then I get called back and they said, hey, you coming up here for 2 weeks and then we're sending you down to Memphis. And it was the Total Truth Commission thing. A guy named Robin Smith was the original commandant, and he and Brett met over in South Africa. I think Brett was doing a Sinbad episode. And Brett came back, pitched it to Vince. Vince liked it, so they brought him over. They brought us up, put us together, and we learned how to. Robin, who is the commandant, was an actual soldier in the South African Army, so he taught us how to march and how to salute and do all that stuff. And then, we were, I think it was 1997. So they sent us down to Memphis. We stayed down there for a few months and just kind of got the chemistry together. And then we came up and, had a run right there at, it was 97. So Survivor Series was gang warfare. That was the theme of it. You had us, you had the Nation, you had the Bariquas, you had the DOA, you had the biker guys, Brian Lee and those guys. So, it kind of fit in. It kind of fit in the grand scheme of things at the time. But with it being Bret Hart's baby kind of thing, also the other thing that happened at Survivor Series in '97 was, Montreal, screw job. I don't think that necessarily affected us that much. Brett, everybody liked us up there at that point. I think Brett was great foot in the door for us. And he, kind of looked out for us, was there. But I never felt like, we can get those guys now that Brett's gone. It was never anything like that. Robin had some visa trouble, I think, and they let him go. And they replaced him with the Jackal, Don Callis, which added a whole different dimension. And I think, it's me personally, I think had a lot more legs because we were going down the David Koresh kind of that kind of deal. So I think it had more legs like that than it had the Truth Commission. But yeah.
But also as well, after the Truth Commission actually disbanded, you actually went on to re-debut on Sunday Night Heat on March 19th of 2000, where you're dressed in SWAT gear and, of course, known as now what you are known as today, Bull Buchanan. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about working alongside the Big Boss Man, and whose idea was it to originally call you Bull and actually bring you in to work with Boss Man?
It was Jim Cornette's idea. I was at home after the Truth Commission, and he called me and said, "Hey, I don't know if you know or not. I've just come back down to Louisville. He just left Connecticut, came back to Louisville. Danny Davis already had OVW going, and then Cornette came in with him, and he said, I got an idea. Might get you back on TV." So he laid the whole Bull Buchanan thing out to me, and originally the Bull Buchanan thing was a prisoner, was a prison inmate. So we did a little different down there in Louisville than what it was actually brought up to New York with. But yeah, I found out I was teaming with Ray, and I was ecstatic. You there?
I'm here. Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, no, I was down in Louisville there for OVW, and got the call, and they put me with Ray, and I'd been a fan of Big Boss Man ever since he. I was watching him when he was Big Bubba in WCW. So it was great. He was great, dude. You'll never hear a bad word about Ray Traylor. And I learned so much working with him, and I learned how to actually carry myself outside the ring. Also, how to be a WWE superstar. I watched him, and kind of learned from him.
And Boss Man, such an amazing talent, gone way too soon, unfortunately. I mean, all the great wrestlers have left us too soon, but Big
Yeah.
Boss Man, such a phenomenal talent. I mean, even WrestleMania '99, man. I believe it was WrestleMania 15. It was when he hung the Undertaker from the top of the Hell in a Cell. Still to this day, I don't know how they made that happen, but that's one thing, just as a fan, where I'm like, you know what, you got me, and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I know. He was great. He was so smooth in the ring, and everybody liked working with him because you always had a good match. Um, but yeah, he was a great, dude. He was great. We got to be friends outside the ring. We'd hang out when we were at home. Now he'd come down to our house. We'd go up to his. Our kids hung out together. Us and Stein. He was buddies with Steiners, so we all would hang out together, and yeah, it was a good time.
And I do want to correct myself. I know I just said a few moments ago the Boss Man hung the Undertaker from the Hell in a Cell, but it was rules were reversed. I just remembered it was
Yeah,
Boss Man that got hung from the
he
cell.
got hung. Yeah,
That's why when I said that, I was like, wait, nope, I was wrong. I got to correct myself.
yeah,
But also, as well, almost on the topic of the Big Boss Man and WrestleMania, of course, the following year, WrestleMania 16, April 2nd, 2000, yourself and Boss Man actually opened up the event where you went against D'Lo Brown and The Godfather, that was accompanied by legendary hip hop artist Ice-T, where you guys ultimately went on to winning that match. I was wondering, what was it like just being able to open WrestleMania 2000 and, of course, just be a part of that amazing event?
Oh, it was great. We had done the WrestleMania in Boston when Mike Tyson was there, but we just had such a small part in it. We were in that 20-man tag team battle royal, but just being on the show and being there is great. But to actually be kind of featured, starting the whole show off, and me and D'Lo had been friends from Smoky Mountain, so we knew each other, we were comfortable with each other, so and I'd already worked Godfather a few times at that point, so I was comfortable with everybody I was in there with, and yeah, it was great. Got to hit the leg drop and get the win. It was great. It was Anaheim. The place was full, and the crowd was live. I don't know. It was just it was a great time. The business was just it was a freight train. Just just couldn't be stopped at that time.
And no, I mean around this time it was I believe 2000 was when the WWF started winning the Monday Night Wars as well. I mean, you guys were absolutely kicking ass back then.
Yeah, we did. We were, you try to get back to the hotel and sit down and watch and just kind of see what watch the replay so you can see what they were. But all the boys were still friends. So we all talked to each other. There'd be times when we were in State College and they were in Philadelphia, but we were all flying out of Philadelphia, so we'd all get together to. But you go in and sit down, to watch the show and just kind of see what they're doing. And there toward the end, man, it was getting kind of like God, because yeah, I mean, you want to win the ratings war, but looking back on it, was it necessarily a good thing to put them out of business? I don't know. And it didn't take long to figure out. It didn't take long for us to figure out that this might not have the big upside that we thought it would. So it's one less place to work. It's a pretty big place to work. It was the only thing that rivaled WWE at the time. So when you got two places, when you got somewhere you can go that that if you're on Vince's TV, all it takes is a phone call. No matter how good, bad, or indifferent you are, or whether they like you or not, you knew that they would sign you just to mess over Vince, and probably sign you to a pretty good contract. But uh, when you don't have that option anymore, and it's not, I never tried that or never thought about it, or the only way I would have done that was if they'd fired me and I didn't have anywhere else to go. But when you don't have that option there, things it turns from a question mark to a statement. it goes from, can you do this for us, to, hey, you're doing this for us. I mean, that's business. That's life. Um, but yeah, it didn't take long to figure out that maybe the best thing in the world was not for, ECW to go out of business, WCW to go out of business. All Japan, Mr. Baba died. All Japan was on its kind of on its heels. New Japan was struggling. It went from sugar to, another S word real quick. Everything.
And also, as well, I got to say, just the fact that wrestling today, I find wrestling is in the boom period. Because, of course, as you mentioned a little earlier on, Don Callis,
Yep.
we got the Don Callis family on All Elite Wrestling. You got the WWE with TKO. I mean, I will admit, it's a weird situation with TKO. I don't know if I like it, but I'm just glad we still got that avenue to watch as well. We got TNA, we got NWA. I mean, there's so many. We got Bullpen Wrestling as well. So many amazing companies currently today, man. So I find this is the wrestling had its recession. Now it's kind of getting back into the spotlight, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, I think it's a great time. I tell all these young guys now, it's a great time to be in the business because you got so many different avenues that you can actually go and make a living at this place. Now, I think everybody will agree. The ultimate place to make a living is always going to be WWE. I know that Tony Khan. I mean, I know they got some pretty nice payroll. That I know they're paying guys over there pretty well too, but you've got some options, and it feels a lot to me because that was kind of my time. It feels a lot to me like that time again. It's the sports it's becoming more mainstream again. Um, it's there's so many different avenues for young guys to go out there and maybe not make John Cena money. You can't go buy a couple of mansions or anything, but you can pay your bills and you can hone your craft and you can go work and you can get out there and dig and you can sell merch and you can make a good living at this without actually being in WWE. And it's been a long time since, we could really say that. New Japan got back on its feet. Their story, everybody knows their story, became the number one company again. Had that, boom run, especially right before the pandemic. Noah's coming back. All Japan's still hanging in. So there's places you can go and make a living, and there's a lot of TV options that we didn't have back then. We didn't have Roku TV. We didn't have, Facebook wasn't really a thing. The internet was still kind of fledgling. Now, bullpen TV. Bullpen TV is actually our Facebook. That's our TV. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, social media. That's a lot of the companies, that's their TV nowadays, and that's what people watch. So, yeah, I think it's a great time to be in the business. You can actually kind of live the life, the old territory style life, just kind of be a vagabond and, go here and work a little bit and then go here and work a little bit and, make money and have fun. It's what it's supposed to be all about anyway.
And I do know as well, because going back a little bit to the WWF days, I know you've told this story about Right to Censor a million times, so I'm not going to ask you the story about Right to Censor, because I will admit, I mean, we've all heard it, and I want to make this interesting for you. But the one thing that I really enjoyed, because I was a huge Right to Censor fan, I loved heels. That's the one thing about me. A lot of people were like, how could you cheer for these people? I'm like, I love it. They're arseholes. It's the best. You know what I mean? I just love that aspect of it. But I love the fact that on November 6th of 2000 in the Millennium, yourself and the Godfather went on to win the WWF World Tag Team Championship by beating the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about working with the Hardys. And I always wondered, how far in advance did you know that you guys were getting the straps put around your waist? Was it that night, or was it a few weeks or months before?
I just found out that night. Michael Hayes, I think, came and told us. I just, I knew that they liked what we were doing. We were getting a good reaction from the crowd, and we were doing what the things were going according to plan for them. Because basically, we'd gone as far as we could go. The stuff that we were doing on TV, we were just, we were very close to getting thrown off USA Network. Vince had to go in there weekly and beg and plead, and please let's do this. We promise we'll. I mean, it's not exaggeration. I mean, there's quite a few times where we came close to getting thrown off USA TV, so we had to do something. And to me, it was a stroke of genius. As if you got censored, censor yourself. So that's what they did, and they used us as a tool to kind of take some of the stuff that had of course had gotten over, but had also gotten to a point to where if we did much more, we were going to get thrown off TV. So, we basically came in and did the dirty work, but we got the heat for it, and that's what we wanted. And the more heat we got, the more we got to work with guys like Rocky and Taker and Kane and all those guys that you can make a little more money with, and yeah, they put tack belts on us. It was great working with the Hardys. I've known the Hardys ever since I started down here in Georgia. I met them, I think, in North Georgia, North Carolina. We were doing some shows up around Silver, North Carolina, like early 93, 94. And, they come over from Omega and worked with them over the Jeff was doing the Willow. He was doing that. So worked with them there, worked with them in Smoky Mountain, worked with them in, a bunch of places. And then, we met up there again. And so I always enjoyed working with them because, to me, it was the classic big guy against the high flyer. Such an easy story to tell. We beat them up, and then they outsmart us and fly around and, get us in the end. So I enjoyed working. Honestly, I cannot fathom how they're still doing this and still doing it fairly well. I mean, we were talking before we went on about the leg drop and,
Yeah.
how my back's just, destroyed. I don't know how those guys are doing it, but God bless them, man. They're still doing it. And, I wish I was there with them, but I can't do it like that anymore.
And I got to say that leg drop there, Bull, as well. I mean, I know I mentioned this to you as well, but such an athletic thing to do, man. Because for people that don't know or might not have seen a Bull Buchanan type match, I mean, if you haven't, I really hope after this interview you go check it out because this is like the peak of the stuff I grew up with. But this man was like 300 plus pounds, 7 foot taller. We're not talking 300 of flub. We're talking 300 plus of mass muscle. And this man would leap literally halfway across the ring and land a clean leg drop perfectly without even injuring the opponent. Just perfect, flawless. I don't know how you did it still to this day, but it's proof that big guys can fly.
Well, early on when I got in business, I was fairly athletic for a guy my size. I played basketball in high school. I played football, baseball, but I went on to college and played basketball. And I was fairly quick on my feet. I wasn't not the sprint. I wasn't gonna run any 40-yard sprints or anything like that. But as far as agile, I was pretty agile. And I started watching Global and Booker T and Harlem Heat. They were down there. I watched Billy Gunn, and I saw how agile these guys were for big guys. And I said, that's going to be to me, that's the evolution of guys our size because, we're big guys, but then you got big guys and then you got giants. Then you got Taker, who's, 6'10". You got Sid Vicious, who's 6'9", 6'10". Andre was 7 foot, Big Show 7 foot, Kane 6'10". Then you got a whole different class of big guys. You got the giants. And I thought if I could parlay, my athleticism, into my style of work, kind of like Booker T did, that would set me apart from everybody else. And so a lot, obviously the scissor kick, but a lot of the stuff, I watched a lot of Booker T. And we joked about it when we finally got to meet when we did the buyout and then he got up to New York. I watched him do one time. He did a leg drop off the top, cut a front flip, and landed the leg drop across the guy. And I tried it one time, and my face met my knee, and yeah, that was my cutoff point. I couldn't follow him. I told him, I said, you broke me on that. I couldn't follow that. I couldn't do it. But I saw, believe it or not, Sid Vicious, was Lord Humongous over in Alabama for Continental Wrestling. I was a big fan of that, and I saw Sid would go up to the second rope and do the leg drop, and that's kind of where I got the idea from. But yeah, it got me a lot of jobs. I got Cornette. So the deal with Cornette, we had that little North Georgia wrestling. Me and Mustafa and New Jack got to be friends, and they got a match. Cornette had a showdown in Georgia and had a match, one of our matches, North Georgia Wrestling. Since we promoted, since he was actually on our TV down there, he would give us a match, and that's how New Jack Mustafa got to Smoky Mountain. Cornette saw him and said, snatched him right up. Well, the next time he came down, it was my turn, and I did the leg drop, and I came back, and he was standing there, and he said, "Man," he said, "I ain't never seen nobody but Bobby do it like that." He said, "But I don't have a spot for you right now, but just keep working, and I'll." So I went down to Puerto Rico for a minute and come back, and it was a message on my answer machine from Cornette. But yeah, that leg drop's got me a lot of jobs. But yeah, it's it didn't hurt back then, but it does now.
And also, I read this on Reddit, and I got to say, if you want to skip this question, Bull, you definitely can. But I read this, and I've never even heard this story, so I don't know if this is true. And we all know Reddit, people talk. So I figure I'm interviewing the man himself, might as well ask it. But I read that there was talks about putting the tag belts on yourself and John Cena when you went under B2. But the Los Guerreros were actually supposed to drop the belts to you guys, but ultimately Eddie buried you. I was wondering if you can actually clear up that statement. Is it fact or fiction? And if it is real, can you tell us the story behind it a little bit?
I saw that. I honestly don't know. I mean, I always thought we had good matches with Eddie and Chavo. I'd heard you hear so much stuff, you never know. I heard that they, there was some talk about maybe putting the tag, but it's because we were working a program with Chavo and Eddie. So if you're working a program with somebody, of course, they're always speculation. But no, I don't know. I mean, Eddie was a good dude, I guess. He him and Chavo had Chavo don't get enough credit. As good as Eddie was, Chavo was right there too. I saw him just a few weeks ago in New Jersey at one of the Comic Con things up there. But I've seen that. I don't know. I mean, if somebody knows more than I do, but like I said, I always thought we had good matches with them, and yeah. So
I figured as much it wasn't real, but I seen it, and I'd much rather get it cleared up since I have you here rather than fans on the internet talking. Because I believe your take rather than some random person on Reddit. So I mean, you heard it here first. It's BS.
Like I say, I never. I mean, me and Eddie never had any crosswords or anything like that. We were always pretty cool. So I mean, somebody might know more than I do, but as far as I know, no, I don't guess.
And then also as well, jumping ahead to 2011, this is actually one of the last WWE questions I have before we jump into 2025. But I remember a segment that you were on. You came back to WWE television where they were doing a segment on John Cena and Mick Foley was hosting it. And they brought you in to talk about people from Cena's past. Yeah. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about how you got that call. And of course, did they ever offer you anything else to kind of stick around as a producer or writer and help with backstage stuff afterwards?
Yeah, so I was at home and got a call from John Laurinaitis, and he said, "Hey, would you be available next Monday night?" And I said, "Yeah." And he didn't really say what it was or anything, but at the time, my son Ben, he's Brooks Jensen now in NXT. He was still a kid, so I knew he would know because he's like a wrestling historian. So I went in there and asked him, I said, "Hey, where's Monday Night Raw at next week?" He said, "Oh, it's in Boston." And so, okay. So I figured it would probably be something with John, but I didn't know. But they called me back like the next day and said, "Hey, yeah, this is what we want to do." And flew me up, put me up. And I got to, see a bunch of people I hadn't got to see in a long time. Got to see John, got to see Rocky. Rocky was in that night. I got to see him. Foley was in there, so I got to see him. You know, some guys that ain't always up there. So no, it was great. Yeah, I've talked to him a few times. There was quite a few years ago, a little bit of talk. Devon's a friend of mine. He was still up there as a producer, so there was a little bit of talk back then. And actually, since Ben has went to NXT, I've been down there a couple of times doing the guest coaching thing. So hey, I still have a good relationship with those guys. I think um, I never had a bad experience that people say, oh, what all kind of bad. The only bad experience I ever had was the day that they told me they wasn't renewing my contract. That was the only bad day I had with them. Every day else was, anytime I worked for them, they paid me. They paid me well. I never looked at a paycheck and said, I think I deserve more than that. They were all pretty good from my standpoint. Um, they always did what they told me they were going to do. I dealt with Jim Ross and later on I dealt with Vince McMahon himself. I had developed a relationship where I could go talk to Vince. And so, yeah, I never had a bad day except the day that I left. And then the day after that, the sun came up and everything, the world kept moving. I said, well, it's time to move on, and I went to Japan. So, yeah.
And also, as you mentioned, your son Brooks Jensen is currently signed to WWE NXT, but also you actually are the one that trained him as well to be a professional wrestler. I was wondering, what is it like just watching your own flesh and blood follow in your footsteps? And of course, what was it like just sharing the ring with him and teaching him your craft?
Well, and I've got another son, Zach Buchanan. He's tearing up the indies down here. We went up to NWA when they were in town Saturday night or Friday night. Yeah, he's getting some looks now. So, but yeah, no, it was. I knew Ben was gonna do this. He just all he wanted to do. He played all sports. He was actually a state champion wrestler, but I knew it was all just to prepare himself to do this later on. So, he approached me about training. I didn't have a ring at the time, but I told him, I said, well, we'll let you referee a little bit. And, we'll go to the shows and you can referee the matches and we'll get in for the shows and then, and I'll, show you. And of course, you always got a trampoline out in the backyard. We can get out there and roll around in. So, no, it was fun. Right there toward the end, it kind of turned into, I had retired in 2014. I joined the sheriff's office. I had actually had a retirement show and everything, but yeah, right there toward the end, before he actually went to NXT, it kind of turned into a comeback tour for me. I tagged with him once, and then everybody wanted us to tag together. I hate to say no, and so we went around the Georgia Indies working as a tag team, and actually had a match against each other, a short match against each other one time. I figured out real quick. I chopped him one time, and I stayed in Japan for 10 years, and worked that style and brought that style back over here to the United States and worked that style with a lot of guys here in Georgia. And I chopped him one time and he chopped me back. And I knew right then, I said, man, I can't. No. He was a stud. But yeah, right there toward the end, God, I got some beat up, because I was actually still trying to take bumps and it actually work. I got some beat up. It took me almost a year after he left and went to NXT. That's probably the only thing that saved my life because I wasn't going to quit tagging with him. And if I kept bumping like that, I'd probably be in a wheelchair today because it took me about a year to recover. But now my youngest son, Zach Buchanan, he's going out. He works, of course, at my promotion Bullpen, but he works at a lot of the biggest promotions down here in Georgia. He works for Southern Fried on a regular basis. He works for Southern Honor Wrestling. One FW is down here, which is basically a feeder system for AEW now. So yeah, so maybe got another one in the pipeline also.
Well, I don't blame you as well for not wanting to quit as well, because you and your son was actually winning championships out there. I know you won the Southern Fried
Yeah.
Tag Team Championship and then the Anarchy Wrestling Tag Championship. So
Yeah.
you're winning belts, you're winning gold. I mean, I don't blame you for not wanting to quit, because not only are you getting extra championships on your resume, but you're also helping your son flourish as well, man. So I don't blame you for not quitting, but I'm glad that he went to NXT. One, because he definitely deserved it, and two, like you said, it would have killed you. So I'm glad, it's a win-win situation.
If we kept going another 6 months tagging together, I'd been dead. But no, it was I sit and I watch him, his matches he has now, and at 23 years old, man, he's so much better than I was, even in my prime. It's amazing. And then, like I said, Zach, he's starting to figure out the mechanics and the psychology. But just from a performer standpoint, he's 6'3". He looks like he ought to be out in Hollywood, and he can do stuff off the ropes that I never even dreamed of. He can do all these backflips and stuff like that. So yeah. So any promoters out there that want to book Zach Buchanan, I'm sure he'll be glad to hear from you. But yeah, it's fun. I never pushed it on them, but I kind of had a feeling they were both going to do it. Ben was just he was such a fan of pro wrestling, and Zach was just such an athlete. It was almost natural for him to, once the high school athlete, he's only 19. Once the high school athletics was over, to just kind of roll right into this. But they both been, I think Ben started refereeing when he was 14. Zach about maybe 15. I think they probably both had their first match by 15 or 16, which was, it was a limited, it was on and off because they both had football. They both had all the high school sports still going at the time. And that, I made them, that was the priority. This was, I told them, I said, this will be here, anytime you want it. So, it was kind of on and off for them, but yeah, pretty proud of it.
And one of the last questions I do have for you tonight, Bull, is because not only from tagging with your sons to being a legend within the World Wrestling Federation and other amazing companies throughout the years, you now have you went from wrestler to sheriff's office to now being a promoter, where you actually own your own wrestling promotion called Bullpen Professional Wrestling. I was wondering what ultimately led to you starting your own promotion, and of course, tell us all about it, all the up and coming events, and where can we snag tickets? Because I know people want to come out and not only see Bull Buchanan, but also be able to just be a part of just wrestling history.
Yeah, and I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. Go from taking bumps in the ring to go to being a cop to being a promoter. I just I can't get enough getting kicked in the head. No, I'd always thought about really the promotion, the show part of it was really not what I necessarily always planned on. I always really just planned on having a school. I just wanted to be able to, bring kids in, and if it's what they wanted to do, teach them the right way, and help them get started and watch them grow and watch them, eventually go somewhere and make a living and enjoy, the same way I have. But about a year and a half ago, we just, we started school and the promotion just kind of snowballed into, I got a lot of friends from the old days that are still pretty popular today. So, I'd bring in a few of my friends once in a while. Ron Simmons came down for us. Devon Dudley came down for us. Godfather's been down for us. And look forward to getting some of my other friends down here. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy. We started out drawing 400 or 500 people, which for around here and most anywhere in indie wrestling is pretty good. Uh, and yeah, we had I think our high has been close to almost 700 people. Um, But but not every show's like that. Sometimes it's 250, sometimes it's 300. So but through our first year, I sat down. I took an average of through, I think at the time it was 8 shows. Our average was 420 people per show, which I thought that was pretty impressive. But we added a lot. We added more towns. So now we run Temple, Georgia. We run Villarica, Georgia. We've run Bowden, Georgia, Ranburne, Alabama, Delta, Alabama, Roanoke. And most of those are regular stops for us. So it's growing. It's like I said earlier. Our TV is Facebook. We actually have a little show on we have our Facebook page, Bullpen Pro Wrestling. We actually have a show where we show some of our shows. Our big show is always in the West Georgia area. Where I'm from. But we also do shows over in Alabama. We have a little show where we do some raw footage from those shows and show them. And of course, our big shows are on Facebook, but we're on YouTube. It's all Bullpen Pro Wrestling. We're on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and we just got on X. So yeah, look we got 3,800 followers, man. It'd be great if we could get 4,000. So anybody out there that ain't following, like and follow us, and it's the Bullpen Pro Wrestling.
And also, even if you're already following, don't even stop there. Share it with your friends. Invite your friends to the. I always say, even if your friends don't like wrestling, you can always become a professional wrestling fan the next day. I mean, there's people that I've met that told me there ain't no way I'm going to watch professional wrestling. I'm like, come over, watch one event, and tell me you don't like it. One of my buddies, he told me, Bull, that he would never watch professional wrestling. He thinks it's stupid. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I got one ticket to Monday Night Raw tonight. Why don't you come on out? It's free. We'll free ride, free ticket. Come enjoy it. At the end of the night, he was like, I don't want to admit it, but that was pretty effing good. And I was like, see, I told you. Now he watches wrestling on the regular. So even if you don't like wrestling and they don't, send him an invite. You never know. Bullpen Professional Wrestling might be that one company that lures them into the sport.
Yeah. We'll take all help we can get.
But I got to say, first and foremost, Bull, thank you so much for your time this evening, man. It was such an honor to speak with you. Like I said, I grew up watching you on television, so it's kind of a surreal moment being able to interview the man himself. But with that being said, I want to also say thank you for years of memories on the TV screen, because as you said, that top rope leg drop absolutely crushed your spine. You did that not just for yourself, but you did that for the people in the crowd and for the people watching at home on the TV set. So with that being said, thank you so much, man, for putting your body, your career, and your life on the line every single night for us crazy fans. Some fans might not appreciate it, but I know I'm not one fan that does. So thank you so much, Bull. And I'm looking forward to the next Bullpen Wrestling event. I can't be there in person, but you best believe I'll be watching on Facebook.
Good deal, man. Thank you.
You're most certainly welcome, Bull. Have yourself a phenomenal night, man. Thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you.